बहुत जरूरी है लेकिन जब मैं इंडिया में पहुंचा तो these two guys are Zepto. Yeah, they formed $1 billion company and they're at different level. So
that's my question.
So my question is, my answer is, if you can become so good that you don't need college education, go and do it, right? But at the same point of
for people here, now the key question with what you're leading to is,
yes,
यार अगर कॉलेज से ड्रॉप आउट होके तुम $1 बिलियन कंपनी बना रहे हो तो कॉलेज करना जरूरी है या सिर्फ एडमिशन लेके ड्रॉप आउट हो जाओ?
एग्जैक्टली यही क्वेश्चन आप पूछो मार्क जुकरबर्ग से या बिल गेट्स से, वो सब ने ड्रॉप मारा, इन सब लोगों ने ड्रॉप मारा, राइट? द पॉइंट इज at some point of time we need to give the student the confidence that nothing else matters but the inspiration that is coming out of him, right? For that some people don't need education, right? मुझे लग रहा है यार मैंने ऐसे की कॉलेज की एजुकेशन, मैं तो वैसे ही कर सकता था जो मैंने 5-10 साल 20 साल पहले किया, राइट? बट actually the whole role of the college is not about teaching him मुझे कुछ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स पढ़ाया या कुछ किसी ने कुछ थ्योरी पढ़ा दी फाइनेंस की. That's not important, right? What's important is the confidence you can go and do this. For example, people to the right, they've gone and solved genuine problems, right? They've created solutions. Although we have a medical doctor here, उसने सोचा पढ़ाई कैसे करा सकते हैं, और you've taken your story that you knew at the age of 6 or 6th class की इंग्लिश कैसे पढ़ानी. Unique problems, right? We have to give kids the ability and the confidence that they can solve difficult problems, right? If the kid is so smart, he doesn't need to go to college, hats off to him. लेकिन हमारी तरफ से कोशिश है कि हम वो मॉडल बने मार्क जुकरबर्ग का या बिल गेट्स का या जेप्टको का, and get the kids at the same level that he has the confidence to figure out. And we teach, for example, we do teach creativity and innovation formally as well, so that he's confident and gets to his goal in life. Yeah.
So Dipanshu, I was here a week back and I was picked up from the airport by a cab. I had to go to LPU Jalandhar. A very smart driver driving and all. And then बात करते करते we reached a certain place. Sir, ये मेरा कॉलेज है, मैंने यहाँ से MA हिस्ट्री किया है. मैंने कहा यार MA हिस्ट्री तू गाड़ी चला रहा है? He said, सर वो MA हिस्ट्री करके नौकरी क्या, ये फ्रीडम है, पैसे मोटा मोटा मैं उतना ही कमा रहा हूँ बट अपनी मर्जी का मालिक हूँ. So of course I understand there is a challenge of employability and all of that. But for me, I was shaken that an MA history is driving a cab. Okay. Now you've flipped from what you learned and now what you're doing. How do you see this landscape where we have this huge inequality, where if I go to a startup founder anywhere, he'll say यार talent नहीं, बच्चे काम करने वाले लोग नहीं मिल रहे हैं. But I go to such places, they don't have employment. What is this gap that you see?
See the gap. I would say this gap in India is huge. It's huge. So, for the right talent, I believe I would give a kidney for that, right? At the same time, we get a lot of applicants for say a typist job who's an MBA, right? So yeah. So definitely people like Ashish are trying to bridge that gap. A lot of other startups are doing it. So I believe that EdTech is a huge umbrella, right? And we're all working in a small segment of that umbrella, right? So for me, for example, I know test prep, right? And in fact, I would say that I know a subset of test prep, which is higher education, right? I believe to bridge this gap, we need a lot more entrepreneurs. We need universities. I don't know if you know this or not, but we have a group product called Relevel, right? You just take a test, and if you pass that test, and that test is going to be very difficult to pass, but if you pass that test and you don't need a university, then the best of the companies would come and hire you, right? So eventually, if you have that skill, you have access to the best of the companies, right? So I believe it would take a lot of entrepreneurs working in EdTech, different segments and different subparts of EdTech to actually bridge that gap. But yeah, that gap is a huge problem in India right now.
So Kavish, I'm going to ask you a very different question. I keep telling my son कि बेटा तेरा बाप जो भी बना है it's because of the power of reading. तो लाइक कविश सिंह मेरे घर में किताबें भरी पड़ी हैं, वो एक भी टच नहीं करता है, मतलब कितना साम दाम दंड भेद. एंड देन वन फाइन डे टर्न टू मी सेड, पापा आपके टाइम पे व्हाट वाज रीडिंग इज नाउ वीडियोस. सो आई एम ऑलवेज ऑन फोन, मैं यूट्यूब पे देखता हूँ, मैं वहां से सीखता हूँ. ये मेरा जमाना है. Okay. And of course, I don't agree with that view. And I keep meeting a lot of youngsters. In fact, I was on a tech panel in this very room here a few days back. And I was saying this world is a very different world. So Bhuvan Bam is on the cover of Forbes magazine as an influencer who's creating BB wines and making 45 crores a year. Okay. So I was asking these kids that if the हमारे time का conventional wisdom था कि if you want to become great at something and make money of it, you need to be good at it, right? So अगर आपको singer बनना है और पैसे कमाने तो what do you need? A good voice? Please explain Dinchak Pooja to me. She's so bad that she's good, right? And she's making a lot of money. So in this confusing scenario, what do you think are the key skill sets or habits that people like here can develop so that, you know, either they scale, grow big, whatever? Top 3, top 2, whatever.
So before I directly answer this question, to just stitch what Ashish was sharing and then Dipanshu, I think the scripture that we are following, sorry I'm not using too much spirituality here, my vocabulary has become like that. So the scripture that we are using came from somebody whom I follow for a while, is to be, to do, to have, to give. Now, whatever you are doing in education, I follow this template and I'll answer it to explain why. To be is how do I shift the being of the learner? Without shifting the being of the learner, I really can't do an impact with the learner. And being is largely shaped by the environment that you're growing up in. Now, why are there more dropouts out of Stanford rather than Chitkara University? Is simply because the ecosystem there influences your being, influences your aspirations and how you think and take decisions, right? So I think that's the most prime thing when you're designing learning outcomes also. How do you shift the being? Second is to do, to be, to do. Because now you need to get the child to do an action, the learner, right? And that action has to be commensurate with what their core desire is. For instance, children in ages 3 to 15 that we predominantly work with, they take their parents' phone to either download YouTube or games, right? They don't intrinsically are learners कि नहीं मेरे को Kindle app download करना है, नहीं होने वाला है. How do you scaffold them and hijack them through a video to a reading path is what is supremely important in design. So when you come to our app homepage, for instance, it will give you video experiences. वही same कहानी मैं आपको वीडियो के थ्रू भी तो दे सकता हूँ. वही same कहानी मैं एक incredible narration के साथ भी तो दे सकता हूँ. And from there, I hijack the child to do what they enjoy doing to achieve the next thing, to be, to do, to have. What is it that they need to have is the skills that you're talking about. Now, once you have captured the being and you have got them to do things that they enjoy, for instance, on our app, there is streaks. Children love gamification. आप में से यहाँ, for instance, my mom, she's on diabetic medicine. She would forget her medicine once in a month. And we have got kids who have not missed a streak on our app for 1800 days. It's more than 5 years they have not missed a single day to read on the app. It's insane, right? So to have are the skills. What do you want them to acquire? Most skills are never urgent. Test prep is an urgent segment. Boss, nahi clear kiya to gaya saal, gayi zindagi. That's the kind of burden kids face in test prep. But if you go back early to your son's age or my kids 8 and 12, there is no urgency, right? Everything is unimportant. How do you get them to acquire? There are 3 essential skills that in early years up to ages 12 that we supremely focus on. One is the numeracy and literacy part of it, which is essential, right? As in, there is no second discussion around whether numeracy, literacy is important or not. And there are shades of literacy. I'll talk about literacy a bit more. One is, इसे पढ़ना आता है एज अप्रोप्रिएट लेवल पे कि नहीं, वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है. किताब दोगे वो एज अप्रोप्रिएट स्पीड और फ्लुएंसी में और कॉम्प्रिहेंशन में पढ़ता है नहीं पढ़ता, वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है. He or she becomes an avid reader or not is a desire. If you achieve it, great. एक दिन हो जाएगा. When you all listen to podcast today, one way to judge a podcast is कि podcast में reading की बात हुई कि नहीं हुई. ऐसा कोई पॉडकास्ट नहीं है जिसमें आदमी आके नहीं बोलता कि मेरी फेवरेट बुक ये है. सो किड्स विल पिक इट अप, बट गेट देम टू द age appropriate level of reading ability for sure, so that they don't struggle in that. That's one, numeracy and literacy. Second is my ability to take independent decisions. We actually handicap children early on by taking every decisions for them, right? I'm very happy that your son had the experience to go to Mirambika, right? As in, the best part of a Mirambika kind of an education is you leave children independent to decide what is right for them, rather than us deciding what is right. And trust me, children are far more intuitive learners than us for them to pick up what is right for them. एक बार आग में हाथ लगाएगा सीख जाएगा, बजाय कि आपका ना सुनने की बजाय. And when we say so many times no to children, we kill their belief systems about themselves, right? The second thing that we really want them to acquire is their ability to take independent decisions. And the third is questions. I think we kill curiosity for the child, right? How do I retain that curiosity? Is to get them to really ask higher order of questions. So when I worked with my 2 kids and the 500,000 kids, these are the 3 predominant outcomes we want to achieve. Numeracy and literacy में age appropriate होना चाहिए. They should have the ability and courage to take independent decisions, even if right or wrong. And finally, they should have a curious mind to ask higher order of questions. उसके अलावा सारी details हैं. I don't know how much.
I completely agree. So I'll just tell you a small story. My son, he was in Mirambika. He was 10 years old and formal education कुछ नहीं हुआ था उसका. And he was into football. So one day he comes home and very proudly says, Papa, I've been selected to go to this camp in Barcelona, Camp Nou. मेसी का कैंप है. तो ये आप फॉर्म भर दो और 2.5 लाख का चेक दे दो. और मैं कुछ अलग जोन में था, मैंने मजाक में बोल दिया, बेटा बाप के पास इतने पैसे नहीं, 10,000 रुपये ले ले, बाकी खुद कमा ले. अब वो मिराम्बिका का बच्चा था, मैं भूल गया. He took it seriously. Next day my wife calls me, किधर है, क्या हुआ? So he called 2 of his friends, टैंक बनाया, हाफ बर्न कुकीज बनाई किचन में, ड्राइवर को लेके हॉर्स खास मार्केट में जाके ठेला लगा दिया. कुछ नहीं बिका. तो फिर एक लेडी से मोमो लेते हैं, दीदी के पास गए, दीदी को अपनी दुख भरी कहानी सुनाई कि इसका जालिम बाप भेज नहीं रहा है, दीदी समझाओ ये वो. तो दीदी ने कहा बेटा ऐसे कस्टमर को पकड़ना पड़ता है. नेक्स्ट मोमेंट एनी लेडी स्टेपिंग आउट ऑफ अ कार इन हॉर्स खास मार्केट, 3 बच्चे उसके पाँव पे गिर गए, रोना धोना, 10 मिनट में माल भेज दिया. Very proudly comes home and gives my wife 525 rupees and says, पापा को फोन करके बोलो मैंने पैसे कमाए. तब मेरी वाइफ को पता चला क्या स्टोरी है. She took them all the 3 kids to the kitchen and said, कुकी बनाने के लिए जो डो है ना, ये 900 रुपए का है. तो he said, मतलब? he said, बोला बेटा ये लॉस है. वो लॉस क्या होता है? तो जब समझाया तो टेंशन में आ गया. अच्छा नाउ आए, ओ पापा मनी. हाँ, तो रात को बैठा रहा मेरा वेट करते हुए. मैं आया तो रोने लग गया. तो ऐसे तो मैं कभी जाऊंगा ही नहीं बार्सिलोना. मैंने समझाया बेटा मार्जिन, प्रॉफिट लॉस. ही लुक्ड अराउंड द हाउस. ही सेड मैं पेंटिंग बना लूं, इसका खर्चा इतना है, कर ले. सो ही मेड अ पेंटिंग. आई पुट इट ऑन सोशल मीडिया एंड माय वेरी डियर फ्रेंड विशाल गोंदला गोकी कॉल्ड. ये क्या हो रहा है? आई सेड स्पीक टू रियान. तो रियान एक्सप्लेन्ड अगेन दुख भरी कहानी. तो ही सेड अच्छा आई विल बाय दिस पेंटिंग, कितने का? दिस टाइम स्मार्टली सेड अंकल आप कितना दोगे? तो विशाल से 10,000 रुपए. सेड हाँ डन. Calculated, बढ़िया है. Then another entrepreneur from Sahiba Sethi, she runs something called Hello Meet. She called and she took Rian for a meeting and said, why don't you do a crowdfunding campaign on a site called bitgiving.com. So उसने साइट पे डाल दिया 7,000 रुपीज की एक पेंटिंग. He ended up raising 2.5 lakh rupees. But इतनी पेंटिंग बनानी पड़े, आज तक जिंदगी में वापस पेंटिंग नहीं बनाई. But the fun learning I got, Ashish, there is we did an event on a terrace to get people to come and take the paintings. So few entrepreneur friends said we'll also contribute. So I have a friend called Prasoon Gupta. The IIT Roorkee kid runs a brand called Satviko. So he said मेरे products बेच दो और 40% margin तुम ले लो. So out of this 18 children of Mirambika, all the boys said हाँ done. कोई question नहीं पूछा. The girls came after a while. तो लड़कों ने उसको समझाया कि ये प्रसून अंकल ने बोला. So this little girl Lakshmi walked up to Prasoon and said, Uncle why 40%? He said बेटा margin, मेरे को भी पैसे कमाने, मेरा product cost है. She looked him in the eye and said, आपको शर्म नहीं आती, IIT से पढ़े हो, बच्चों से पैसे कमाओगे? When he tried to say, I don't want to, मैं इसको आपसे बहस नहीं करनी. She called for, give it to me at a fixed price, I'll sell. Marker pen से delete किया. She called all the boys. Don't go to the aunties. Aunties will bargain. Uncles को पकड़ो. So if next moment Ashish walks in, all the kids have surrounded Ashish uncle, please ये मखाना ले लो. कितने का? Uncle, it's for a good cause. वैसे कविश अंकल ने 500 रुपए दिए. It's बेटा 20 रुपए का. Uncle, it's for a good cause, 500. They sold a product of a friend of mine called Deep Bajaj, Peabody. They went to all the guys. So if Dipanshu is saying, but ये तो ladies का है, uncle आपके घर में माँ बहन नहीं, you want them to use a dirty toilet? My neighbor sent cupcakes for the kids to eat. The boys again like idiots wanted to eat. The girls said, wait, पहले इसको बेचो, खाना तो हम नहीं है. The girls were smarter, but then these girls sat with all the smarter. Another friend had a thing called Chai Thela. So all the kids are asking them questions. Uncle, where did you study? I said IIT Kharagpur. And again they said, the kids said, Uncle, अगर आपको चाय ही बेचनी थी, तो IIT की सीट क्यों वेस्ट करी? And we realized that the Mirambika education system, these kids have not overloaded with data. They have not been told that you can't question your superiors. And because that mind was so free, the kind of curiosity and questioning these kids had at the age of 10, I rarely see in formal education, unfortunately. That's a very black and white thing. Either sahi answer hai, galat answer hai. If you have a great memory, you get. So now my question to all three of you, your thoughts is, are entrepreneurs made or are they born? And why are you saying what you're saying? So can you train people to be entrepreneurs? Or is it like कि आपके blood में ही है तो ये खून में ही होता है तो ही आप entrepreneur बन सकते हो?
I think the biggest thing that this my belief is courage is one of the biggest thing you need to experience for yourself. I remember the first time I had a street fight in Indore was the time I realized I had the courage to take the world head on. And I think that experience of you having the courage to put yourself into unknown situation, when you go through that one experience, you may inculcate that self-belief, or it could happen through a series of experiences. But I think entrepreneurs may be born. I am not a biology student, so I can't comment. But I'm very sure entrepreneurs are made out of life experiences. So, yeah.
You're a medical guy, so you will have both sides. You can't say I don't know biology.
I would definitely answer this question with my own personal story. I was definitely not an entrepreneur even after I had started PrepLadder. So 2016-17, as I told you, it was only a question test series kind of platform, right? And we were making good 5 to 10 lakh rupees a month, and we were doing about, the team was very, very small, and we were doing about 5-6 lakh a month in profit also, right? And I would say that was the best time of my life, right? So very small team, and we just used to pick up questions from a lot of sources and give out tests and those things. Say that 2016 and 17, even though I was doing PrepLadder, I was an entrepreneur, right? Where that sense of purpose came was, 2017 के end में we had organized an all India exam, right? Where we had booked centers across the country wherein the student would go to a center and take the exam, right? So we also had a couple of people on the street, sending us videos and those, videos out of those places, out of the centers. So practically, right, जैसे you would do for a real NEET PG exam, right? And उस time पे I felt कि I am not doing right with the students, because I cannot say with the confidence that the exam that they are going to take inside is the best quality, right? And that was the switch for me. I would say that 2017 के end में I actually became an entrepreneur, where I thought किसी और के पास ज़्यादा पैसे होंगे, किसी और के पास फंडिंग होगी, किसी और के पास रिसोर्सेज होंगे, बेटर टीम होगी, बेटर एक्सपीरियंस होगा. But nobody else would give more value to the student than we will. And we've been doing that since 2017 के end से. And we've just entered new categories. So like he was saying कि they always measure कि कितना students, reading time कितना है. So for PrepLadder, and you would not believe it, a paid subscriber uses the app for 6 hours on an average every day. Right, so that is the level of engagement that we have. Obviously, वहाँ पे password sharing हो रहा है, but the kind of engagement that PrepLadder has and the kind of value that we provide to the student, and that is what we are all obsessed with. I don't think anybody can do this. That is something nobody can beat us in. So yeah, to your question, I believe whenever you find your purpose, you become an entrepreneur. So you're not born as an entrepreneur. You find your purpose and you become an entrepreneur.
Ashish.
ये आंसर हो चुका है क्वेश्चन है कि entrepreneurs are not born, they're made, right? आप तो हार्वर्ड गए हो, आपको पता ही है theory, lots of theories हैं, पूरी शाम लग जाएगी. But I'll tell you one theory which my professor had taught me, famous professor of behavioral science and finance, S.K. Chakrabarty, IIM Calcutta. So उसने Maslow's theory होती है वो पढ़ाई हमें, Maslow's theory सबने पढ़ी है कि नीचे सबसे पहले जो आदमी है वो क्या करता है, बेसिक नीड्स. उसके बाद वो आगे जाता है हाउसिंग सेक्टर, देन वो सोशल नीड से पहुंचता है कि बस 2-3 लोग जान जाए मुझे, जैसे कबीर जी हैं यहाँ पे, राइट, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, राइट, एंड देन फाइनली इट्स सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन. सो ही सेड किड्स, और ये सब अंग्रेजों ने आपको बताया है, दिस इज नॉट ट्रू, राइट. द रियल ट्रूथ इज एंड दैट इफ यू लुक एट, फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू लुक एट हिंदू इंडियन माइथोलॉजिकल टीचिंग, टॉप पे स्ट्रेट जिसने पहुंचना होता है सीधे जाता है वहाँ पे ऑन सेल्फ एक्चुलाइजेशन, राइट. क्रिस्टोफर कोलंबस ने पहले बोला था मैं अपने घर में कुछ करूँगा, सीधे गया गोल घूमने, राइट. सेम फॉर ऑल द entrepreneurs that you see. It's when that need to drive self actualization happens कि आप वो सीधे करते हो, right. तो the whole thing is how it is ignited. It's ignited through various instances. You felt that only you had the answer, or you've been teaching kids, or you've been learning how to speak in English for a very long time throughout your life. So जब ये होता है, जब ये चमक, in my case we figured out, we have the answer how to teach 10 million students how to be job ready, and that's what we're going to be doing next, right. So जब तुमको ये click होता है, you start doing that. So that's the answer to it. Yeah.
So last question before we open it up for questions. The business of education. Any thoughts? Any?
So you know, एक तो मार्क जुकरबर्ग ने बोला था world's biggest company one day will be an education company, right? And he said that 10 years ago, and I was still working in a bank 7-8 years ago. बोला था उसने एक बार, right? He said यार ये ऐसे कैसे होगा? Then one day, by the way, my friend from one of these investment banks called me 9 months back again कि ये 12 मिलियन की डॉलर है करनी है, 12 बिलियन पे इन्वेस्ट करना है बाईजूस में. अरे यार मैं तो इंडिया जा रहा हूँ वापस, तो मैं यहाँ पे पैसे निकाल रहा हूँ अपने, बट तेरे को करना है कर दे. और 12 बिलियन पे उसके पैसे डबल हो गए, राइट. But the point is, education is not a business. Let's be very clear about that. The moment you start looking at a business as a business, then you are going down the wrong path, right? So you have to look at your other outcome first, which is what are you doing? You're getting people through, for example, examination, may be important, right? Or you want to give them a skill which they don't have. You focus on that, then everything comes back. Other things will follow. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
Dipanshu?
So I just, I would say कि your aim should be aligned with your students' aim, right? And if you're doing whatever you can do to progress your students' aim, you have a good business in your hand, right? And I believe कि, and I would talk about test prep. If you're able to do that for any category, for example, we've just entered UPSC, right? And we've just entered GATE. Again, I don't think anybody else would give better value to the students than we will, right? If in say, not in the version 1, maybe in version 2, हमारे notes best हैं, right? We already have a major chunk of the market, right? So I personally believe अगर तुम्हारा aim is aligned with your students' aim, right? For in his case, it would be making students job ready. Right. In my case, it is, making sure that students clear the exam, or if they don't clear the exam, for me, it is like they complete the syllabus before their exam, right? And the entire journey that we create for students, and so where we focus more for the students is not at the top of the funnel कि उसने sign up करके खरीद लिया या नहीं. Where we focus more is after they've bought the product. Now are they studying every day, right? And that is what we try to gamify. That is what we so if your aim is aligned with your students' aim, I believe you would, in especially I would say about test prep and maybe all the other education categories also, you would have a very, very good business in your hand.
Kavish?
I think we can have a very independent 3-hour session on this. I'm very deeply disturbed as well as concerned about this subject matter, and I think education there are two alternatives. I think if I have to pursue a career in education, I have two alternatives. Either I should become the education minister of the country and drive changes through the policy such that it percolates down to the last mile. That's my aspiration. Or I should run a for-profit company and make sure user needs are met. Now, when you do the jobs to be done, you deserve a profit. So either of the two paths is where I stand right now. Is this the final conclusion in my thinking on education as a business or not? No, it's evolving very fast. This is my fourth venture. I've exited 3 ventures, all 3 were for profit, and I also run a not-for-profit trust for last 13 years, through which we do a lot of charitable work. But the moment I get into that chair of not-for-profit thinking, I start with the thinking of constraints somehow. I'm still yet to double-click and figure out कि क्या चक्कर है वहाँ पर, but that's my stand. Either become the global learning minister or run a globally large company in education.
So my experience has been educational places like Shulini, which give education, have students, and educational places where they sell education, they have customers. तो एक जगह बच्चा आके टीचर के पाँव छूता है, दूसरी जगह बच्चा बोलता है मैं फीस दे रहा हूँ, तू पढ़ा रहा है, तो it's a transaction. I think that's my take. Do we have time for questions or?
We can do very quickly 1 or 2 questions.
1 or 2 questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hello. I'm Vikrant. I'm from Amritsar. I run chain of schools by the name of Angels Paradise. So it was a lovely discussion, and it is a very, very thoughtful discussion. That is education a business or still it's a service? But that's a debate that will go on. So my question to you, sir, Freedom, what is the best way to inculcate reading habits through books amongst the school students? I have just recently launched library. So I want to, how do I start that the students start loving book? Because you yourself said that due to YouTube and everything, the students are losing the interest. So which 3 tips would you give to me that how can inculcate the habit of learning to my students? Thank you.
Just in the interest of everyone here in the audience, because no matter they are school owners or not, they do have this desire to become a better reader or inculcate reading in their next generation. So I'm going to give you 3 quick generic principles, but for the schools, happy to have a one-on-one with my team and help you out. We don't sell anything to schools. Schools can use all our IP free of course, so you can benefit. Just 3 things. First is surround children with books, right? As in literature is the starting point. What worked for him and me is scientifically proven. Surround children with books in school, at home. Second, आपको रीडिंग पसंद है, आती है, नहीं आती है, शाम को आधा घंटा किताब लेके बैठ जाओ. जब बच्चा देखता है मेरे माँ बाप और भैया सब पढ़ते हैं, बच्चा भी पिक करता है. So even if you're not reading, just daydream opening a book. It's okay. Create that environment for the child. And third, if you can start, anything that you measure becomes a progress. Can we start measuring that? We measure our weight and we progress towards health. Can we measure that? If we do these 3 things, by design we will create more readers and not leave it to destiny.
Is it a need that is felt by the student? Because I believe skill per se, skill without degree. So you still have students because you give a piece of paper called degree. But is skill without degree even a need that is felt by student? I believe that's a grudge purchase. That's why we have universities doing well. We don't have a single skilling brand which is doing well.
There are 2 thoughts around education, and if you just look at global universities like Harvard, Oxford है, जो बोलते हैं हम philosopher बनाएंगे. वो बैठेंगे अपनी कुर्सी में ऐसे करके टांग ऊपर करेंगे और सोचेंगे दुनिया में क्या होने जा रहा है, right? The other one is Stanford, right? जो बोलते हैं हम लोगों को कुछ करना सिखाएंगे, कुछ बनाना सिखाएंगे, और that's a different thought. And we've taken the thought of the second one, कि हम आपको कुछ बनाना सिखाएंगे, आपको कुछ ऐसे skills देंगे, creativity भी आपको सिखा सकते हैं, entrepreneurship भी सिखा सकते हैं, right? आपको पेटेंट कैसे करना है, नई चीज़ों के बारे में कैसे सोचना है, वो सब सिखा सकते हैं, right? आपको लिखना कैसे है वो भी सिखाएंगे. आपको वीडियो में अगर आपको टीवी में कुछ आपको कोई वीडियो रिकॉर्ड करना है या जर्नलिज्म को कोई काम करना है, वो भी हम सिखा सकते हैं, राइट? तो द थॉट इज व्हाई शुड द यूनिवर्सिटी आल्सो एंटर दैट डोमेन, स्टार्ट टीचिंग दैट, राइट? तो So very good question. I don't know why or why not a skills company would be successful, but I think it's now the mandate of universities to enter that domain and do it with their full heart. So great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Will the moderator want to take this?
Okay. I would say, because now Radhika is giving me this looks, I'll say I am a Harvard student. We are told networking के लिए Harvard जाओ, पढ़ना है तो Stanford जाओ. You'd agree, right? I think over to you. Radhika.
Millionaire बनना है तो पढ़ो ही ना.
Millionaire बनना है तो बॉम्बे जाओ.
So thank you very much for such a wonderful and insightful discussion. And Kavish, very interesting story. Looking at you, one can't, really imagine that you were into street fights and all.
Only once.
Okay. Cool. And now I would like to invite Mr. Manish Jauhar to facilitate our panelists. Mr. Manish Jauhar is the founder and CEO of Grey Cell Technologies, Director of Chandigarh Angels Network, the founding curator of Chandigarh Hub of World Economic Forum's Global Shapers Community, and last but not the least, a chartered member of TIE.
Also, Munish is in a minority. ये दुबला पतला पंजाबी है.
I'm meeting him at Sukna Lake for running tomorrow morning.
He looks like that.
That's what.
Yes, sir. Good. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Good. Good.
Request you all to please settle down.
Great aspect. I am connected to a team. That's how I see all the money. I would love it. Very
Panel, New Era of Digital Wealth. To shed light on the past, present, and future scope of fintech and crypto, we have with us here panelists from diverse backgrounds. Please join me in welcoming on stage our first panelist, Mr. Anup Bansal. Anup Bansal is a